cue me? Welcome to Relationships 2.0. I'm Michelle Skeen. My special guests today are Susan and Peter Glasser. They're the authors of Be Quiet, Be Heard, The Paradox of Persuasion. Welcome, Susan and Peter.
Here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there was just a little bit of static, but now we're great.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. This is good news. I was being quiet earlier, and so they couldn't hear me. So it's kind of perfect for the topic of our conversation today. I really enjoyed reading your book. In large part because it's well written, but also because it's such an important topic for really success in our relationships and success in life is learning how to communicate effectively.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more. It is what we've devoted our life's work to, our research, our university teaching, and our lecturing and consulting.
So your focus on this goes a long way back.
Yes, it does. We met in graduate school where we got our doctorates in communication. And that was where we began our research and our teaching on the topic. And we have been together as a married working couple ever since.
That's so great. Okay, so let's get started because there's so much to talk about in your book. It's my copy is heavily highlighted and also endorsed by you. Thank you so much. So first of all, let's talk about this paradox, the title of your book, Be Quiet, Be Heard. Why is that important and why did you choose that title?
Well, it seems to us that when you think about effective communication and especially when things aren't going well, the default move is always to move into great listening. Great listening is the breakthrough moment in most difficult interactions.
And it's counterintuitive, right? Because it seems like when we're in those most challenging communication moments, the conflicts of life, our real effort, our energy seems to go into explaining ourselves. This is why I did it. This is what was going on for me. I want you to understand why I said what I did. And in fact, that's what gets us in the deepest trouble. So it is a paradox that really what we need to do to be heard is to be quiet first.
Because human beings have this very unique capacity to listen well to people who listen well to them. It's a fascinating thing to see. Even someone you'd consider a bad communicator, if you really give yourself over and listen really well, suddenly you'll have an audience.
And I just want to add one thing, lest your listeners think that we're the first ones to come up with this. It all started with Aristotle, who said...
And we're going back now to 740 BC.
A little ways back.
Yeah, a little ways back. Actually, it's even farther back than that. But Aristotle said, the fool persuades me with his reasons, the wise man with my own. And so even back then, this genius rhetorical theorist knew that in order to really persuade, we needed to listen long enough and hard enough to understand what was reasonable to the other person.
Right. So, like an example, I had poor communication with a situation with my daughter today where she was asking me about something she was thinking about doing. And rather than having a real conversation about it and listening to her reasoning, I immediately, came down hard on why I didn't think it was a good idea and why I didn't think she should do it, which then took longer for her to even see my point of view because I had I wasn't really listening. I was just
Yes,
talking.
yes.
And so you moved her into complete resistance rather than
Exactly.
hearing you out.
Yeah, I will tell you,
Exactly.
Michelle, to be honest here, we used to start, when our daughter was between 13 and 16, we used to start our programs in conflict resolution by saying the things we teach work for everyone except adolescent teenage daughters.
Right. Right.
But
Well,
you know,
here's
we
the
real
part you're both really going to love, and that is that my daughter and I have co-authored a communication skills book for teens that's coming out the end of this year with New Harbinger
nice.
Publications. So, yeah, do as we say, not as we do.
Well, definitely be sure that you hook us into that because we'd love to look at it. And definitely, I think you receive our weekly communication capsules, which are research-based strategies, very, very quick, brief ones on important topics. And I would love to create one around that book that you and your daughter created.
That's really sweet. Actually, after I enjoyed reading your book so much, Kelly and I would be honored if you take a look at the final manuscript. We'd love any comments you have.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we'll have that in the next, like the end of June. So
Great.
I'd love to send you a copy. But, the funny thing is we know all this stuff, and kind of when I get into those situations, it's hard to, and maybe you can speak to this because I think this happens to a lot of people. Maybe even right in the middle of it, you realize you've kind of made a mistake in the way you're approaching it, but then we're afraid to kind of back out of it or how to back out of it without without I don't know, losing our position. Maybe that's it.
Well,
When really the power would be in just saying, you know what? I don't know why I even came down hard about that. I don't even really have that strong of an opinion.
Yeah.
Like just immediately admitting to the mistake, I guess, is the most powerful.
Well, we have such an important concept. We call it do-overs, and it's just for those moments where we have said something or done something that when we look back on, or even in the moment, we say, oh, why did I say it that way? Why did I do that? Why did I put my foot in my mouth? And the good news is some of the most powerful things you can do are do-overs. Do-overs begin like this. Jackie, the way I spoke to you earlier today, it's really been gnawing away at me. I really didn't like the way I came on, and with your permission, I'd like to take it from the top and give it another shot. Yeah. And the underlying message in just that introduction is, you are so important to me. I have been thinking about you even when I haven't been with you, and I would really like to give it another shot. It tends to, some of the finest conversations we have ever facilitated were actually ones in which someone went back using that strategy to create that moment.
And I think the idea of do-over is another one of those paradox of persuasion. I think we'll discover in our time together today that the reason we called it Be Quiet, Be Heard, the paradox of persuasion, is that so much of what works in communication is really counterintuitive, paradoxical. And one of the examples that Peter just shared is the do-over, to actually admit, I did not like the way that sounded. I would like to try it again, is a very powerful communication move, very relationship binding.
Yeah. Well, and then the other person feels like they can trust you more because you're willing to admit when you're wrong. I mean, I think we like when other people can be vulnerable, and admitting you're wrong feels really vulnerable to everyone, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Now we are very cautious, though, about apology in terms of just being frontal about it, because we've discovered that sometimes apologies come too quickly, and it's like putting a sock in someone's mouth. So, for example, if
that's
Susan criticizes me and says,
and I say, you never listen. When I try to talk to you about something important to me, you get defensive, you fly off the handle.
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah,
in
she
a
doesn't feel
situation,
heard because you just saying you're
Exactly.
sorry is supposed to do away with all of that, rather than if you were to address some of her criticisms or her complaints.
or even the thing is, even if he doesn't have a solution immediately, I think you might remember in our book, one of the things we talk about is our 5-step model for responding to criticism and anger. And that model is intended to have very pure listening. So apologies after a person reflects, paraphrases, asks questions, finds points of agreement, and then says, I am so sorry. I never realized it was having that impact on you. I hope you accept my apology.
So an apology preceded by a thorough analysis of what the person said.
Great listening.
So that they absolutely believe you understand. That's when apologies really carry weight.
Yeah. As opposed to just a very quick thing to get rid of the uncomfortable conversation, to end the uncomfortable conversation, right?
Exactly right.
Which is how it's often used.
Right.
Yeah. No, it really is, right? Let's talk about I hope you don't mind that I'm going to kind of jump all over the place, but
right ahead.
Let's talk about courageous communication. So, we were just mentioning that people really don't people like to avoid conflict at all costs.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, like I just was with a client today, the guy who she's dating, he withdraws when she shows any kind of emotion, any kind of negative emotion. So it's very difficult for people to make progress if they can't go through, whether it's a couple or family members or friends, if they can't have some uncomfortable conversations. Talk about that and what you mean by courageous communication and all that goes along with that.
Okay. So I think you really are accurate when you say that most people will avoid conflict at all costs. And when you really think about it, it's understandable because conflict is usually unpleasant and unproductive, right? I mean, it damages relationships, it makes problems worse. So it's not surprising that people want to retreat from it. It's our belief that when conflict isn't working, it's because we are going through it unconsciously. So someone says something or does something, it really racks us. And so we react. We react from our emotion. We react on autopilot. We don't think consciously about what is our intent here and how can we best achieve it. So all of our work is really designed to help people become more conscious about conflict so that they're not on reactive autopilot in those situations, but very consciously thinking through. Now, why is that important? Because we have been increasingly convinced that when people do conflict well, 3 really incredible things happen. Instead of problems go unsolved and relationships get broken, we have the reversed. We have solved problems, strengthened relationships, and deepened trust.
Yeah.
And so we are convinced that having courageous conversations unconsciously might not work. It's not just courage that's required to have great conflict. It's a conscious understanding of how can I raise this delicate issue in a way that that person will not get defensive, that they will really understand what I have to say, they will be open to my input, and they will join together with me to create a solution. How do I word it so that's my outcome?
Yeah.
And I guess every skill that we designed and that we developed and that we've researched over all these years has had the goal of creating a very conscious step-by-step way to approach a difficult situation to increase the likelihood that the problem will be solved, the relationship will be strengthened, and trust will be deepened.
Yeah. All just so important to make our lives more fulfilling and bring more joy and more love and connection and success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, it's interesting when we talk about conflict, there's really at least two sides that we need to consider. So two very important abilities that people need to really make conflict work are the ability to tell people when they're doing something that's a problem and to do it in a way that is encouraging and respectful, and to be able to listen openly when somebody is telling you that your behaviors have become a problem for them. And the ability to do both of those things is transformative, and it's what allows conscious conversations around very challenging topics.
So one of the things that you mention in the courageous communication is about lean forward when you want to pull back, make eye contact when you want to look away. And something that's really hard for all of us, as if those weren't difficult enough, to ask for more information when someone's criticizing you.
Yes. Well, first let me concentrate on that first nonverbal move you mentioned, because it's so important. Think of it this way. Instead of get curious, not furious. That transition alone is huge. And what we've discovered is if you move your body into a curious, attentive posture, the mind will follow. It's one of the few times in life where our thinking actually follows our nonverbal demeanor. So we all get curious in different ways. I lean in, my head usually twists a bit. And then the second move is huge. When the criticism comes in, so often our circuits get jammed. And the last thing we can do is paraphrase. So our second nonverbal move is what we call the 5-second pause and ponder. So criticism comes in, and you've got to look curious during the 5 seconds. If you look like you're about to pounce or get really
Can it look
upset,
like you're going to a happy place too?
Right. So you've got to look really curious, almost like an investigator, try to figure out what's happening nonverbally.
Columbo.
Exactly.
Yes,
that's my thinking about, right. And
I know.
then
Well, that's because that's our generation, right? Probably a lot of people are like, Columbo, who's Columbo? But he was my favorite detective.
Right. But during that 5 seconds, what we say to ourselves is, what is this person trying to get across? What do they wish that I would glean from the statement they just made? In a sense, you're saying to yourself, what is their intention in making their comment? And during that 5 seconds, you are taking all that in. Now, at the end of the 5 seconds, the hope is that you can give some shortened rendition, a paraphrase, a reflection of what that person said. And if the person can't come up with a paraphrase, because, paraphrasing can be difficult. You're listening, but you're talking. So Our recommendation is to say 3 words. Tell me more. Can you please tell me more? Really counterintuitive. But there's some interesting new research that suggests in a one-to-one conversation like the ones we're talking about here, the person who does 51% or more of the talking feels better about the conversation, feels better about the other person, and here's the big one, more committed to whatever solution comes out of that interaction. So,
more invested, more committed.
Exactly. Yeah. So really giving yourself over in that conversation to giving that person a chance to speak, really working hard to understand, and then, as you suggest, then going on to the next unusual move to ask for more details. And if the person can't come up with one, to actually take this very extraordinary move and actually guess what the person might be upset about. And people really fear this move. This is usually the first point of resistance in our programs. And people have even said to us at this juncture, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to give that other person rope to hang myself with? I mean, why would I do that? And then
Right.
they say, besides, what if they guess wrong? And the person says, aha,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Oh,
one.
now
You
you have that
terrible
problem
dog.
too. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
But,
can you two give an example of what that might look like, since I'm lucky enough to have both of you here?
Yes.
Sure.
You mean what it would look like?
Yeah, what it
In
would
a
look
real
like. So
interaction.
like one of you criticize the other person, and then what it would look like for the person being criticized to ask for more information, and then guess what the criticism might be.
Okay.
Sure.
So why don't you criticize me with the one about...
Shall we do one? I'm trying to think of one that your listeners would be able to relate to. So how about we talk about we're a brother and a sister.
Perfect.
And we're in business together. So we'll bridge the family and business. And I'm upset with Peter. He's the CEO, and our brother Ronnie is just a loose cannon. And I want Peter to do more about Ronnie, because Peter is the only one whose approval Ronnie cares about, and Peter doesn't want to. So shall we just take a quick...
Well, first, we'll give you 20 seconds of how it would look naturally, and then we'll back up and I'll become a good listener.
Perfect.
Right?
That sounds great.
Okay,
I love it.
So first, au naturel.
First, we'll do the unconscious, more typical argument.
Okay. So here we are. I'm in my office. Susan comes in to talk to me.
Hey, Pete, we really got to talk.
Well, Sue, I'm really busy.
I know you're busy, but this is really serious. And because you're so busy, let me just get right to the point. Your brother, Ronnie, I know he's my brother too, but you're the only one he cares about. He is ruining this company, and you are the president just sitting back and letting it happen.
Susan, ever since we were kids, you and Ronnie have had it in for each other. Give it a break.
Okay.
We're in business together.
It's about me and Ronnie when we were kids. This is not about me and Ronnie when we were kids. This is about Ronnie.
Well, did he do something recently?
Yes,
what?
He did. He's abusive. He's rude. He yells at
So
people.
tell me something else that's new. Sue, he's been like that since he's a little kid, but he makes some good innovations, Sue, in his plant.
Yeah, but his innovations are not worth it, and you are the one who needs to address it.
All right, let's stop. So that might be how it goes in a natural state situation.
Which is kind of an example of neither of us conscious, both of us just reacting to what the other said, and this endless spiral of toxicity where nobody's listening, nobody's taking accountability, and it's not surprising that it ends in
hurt feelings,
relationship hurt, problem is completely unsolved.
All right.
And not really even knowing kind of like what the problem is, clearly, right?
Exactly. We don't even know what
we don't even know at this point. But I have to tell you, do you guys have your own TV show? You're both really good actors. I like it. I was there.
Well, here I was going to say here's a secret, but it may not be a secret very long. We actually met auditioning for plays. We were both theater majors as undergrads, so it's fun for us to be able to pull that out in our.
All right. So before we get too far from the scene, let's take two, and let's assume that I am now aware of this model. I've just learned it, and Susan will stay dysfunctional and upset. And
we'll just show what conscious listening to criticism could look like.
Okay.
And I'm going to start at the exact same way.
And we're going to keep it tight, so it may not seem as realistic as it might in a longer...
Right, because we're going to just make it happen quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pete, we really need to talk.
Sure. Come on in, Sue. Have a seat. What's going on?
All right. You're busy. I'm busy. So let me just get right to the point and not beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Your brother, Ronnie, is ruining this company, and you are sitting back and letting it happen.
Oh. Wow. So Ronnie has done something that really has you upset and worried.
I am very worried. I am petrified.
Sue, can you tell me, what is it? What's gone down?
You want an example?
If you would.
Well, he is rude. He's abusive. He insults people, and he's going to send our worst people, keep them in, and he's going to send our best people away. We are going to lose the people we need because you are letting him be abusive.
Wow.
And by the way, just as a side comment to you, Michelle, and to your listeners,
Yeah.
I did not give Peter a specific example. I said it was, but if he really wants to get details, he will have to guess. So let's see if he does that.
So, Susan, I heard this. I was hoping it was a rumor. I heard that Ronnie went into the plant. He took a wrench. He threw it against the wall. And he said something like, what was it, my way?
Or the highway. He did that, Peter.
He really did
He really did that. And he did it because two guys came back late from lunch by 10 minutes. I mean, imagine the people that were in my office complaining about that. And do you want to know another example?
Please.
Mildred, our bookkeeper. Tell me how long she's been working in the business. She was Dad's first bookkeeper.
36 years.
36 years. Okay. Mildred came in crying today because she was making a cup of coffee. And Ronnie went to her and said, so now we're paying you for drinking coffee on the job?
He said that to Mildred.
He said that to Mildred.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Sue, you're right. This is unacceptable. And I can see, when Ronnie goes through those kinds of things and says those kinds of things, I can see how it would really scare, it scares me to hear you talk like that. It's probably, he's going to run off some of our best
That's
people.
my fear. And the other thing, Pete, that I hope you'll agree to is that when you really consider all of the people in Ronnie's life, you are the only person whose approval he cares about. And you really haven't said or done anything to clue him in about how much this is a problem.
So one of the things, I'm going to interrupt the two of you. We're going to go to break in just a minute. But I wanted to say that listening to that and hearing the two of you and the way, Pete changed his reaction to Susan reminds me of that part in the book about how it only takes one person to change the model of
yes.
Of interaction. Yes. And yes. I know we, tell our clients that all the time, right? If you start I think couples therapy can often be better when you don't have, both of the people in the therapy room, but you're just working with one of them and that they can be the ones to start that positive kind of feedback loop. Like Susan, you soften, we could all hear you soften so much once you realize that Pete was listening to you. Exactly. And that he wasn't defensive, but he was open and curious, that then you settled down because you came out, you came in like loaded for bear, like the first session we heard. So we're going to go to a short break. And then when we come back, you two can break that down. But again, great. Okay. I took an improv class. I appreciate the improv.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, look forward to getting back with you.
Okay. You're listening to Relationships 2.0. My special guests are Susan and Peter Glasser. Their book is Be Quiet, Be Heard. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned for more. Hi, I'm Michelle Skeen, psychologist, author, and host of Relationships 2.0. On my radio show, I interview guests who present their unique perspectives and expertise on topics that cover all aspects of relationship. If you want to improve your relationship, and let's face it, we all have room for improvement, tune in to Relationships 2.0 with Dr. Michelle Skeen. If you miss my show or you're interested in listening to past podcasts, you can go to my website, www.michelleskeen.com. Again, www.michelleskeen.com. Tune in and improve your relationships.
When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, both of my daughters were pregnant, and everything I was looking forward to turned into everything I was going to miss. First words, first steps. Today, those babies are 3. I'm with them all the time. I don't know what's next, but I know I'm here today.
A Susan G. Komen grant helped pay for Alanthia's surgery, and today she's caring for her grandchildren. Help save lives. Visit IamSusanGKomen.org. A public service message from Susan G. Komen.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. Want to snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? Question mark. We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Relationships 2.0. I'm chatting with Susan and Peter Glasser, authors of Be Quiet, Be Heard, The Paradox of Persuasion. Will you two please share with the audience the ways to get in touch with you, follow you, get more information about all of the great work that you do?
Well, I'd love to. Thanks, Michelle. I will start with how to, we say our name Glazer, just kind of
Oh,
like
I'm
a
so
laser.
sorry.
No,
Oh, I'm
it's
so
okay.
sorry.
Are you kidding? We have had students for years who still say it the other way. But
I'm
it's
so
like
sorry. I hate mispronouncing people's names. I should have asked first. I apologize.
That's totally fine. So we're the Glazers, and the best way to be in touch with us is through our website, which is theglazers.com, and that's TheGlazers.com, theglazers.com. And we have, for a specific period of time around this interview program, if people pop onto the website, we have a downloadable audio version of our book for them to get as our gift
that's
for
great.
Meeting us here. And so theglazers.com is our website. We are also love to be in touch with people on Facebook, and that is facebook.com/Glazers, or
Great.
on Twitter @theglazers Inc.
Perfect. Yeah, everyone should have this book. It's so important. Let's break down what just happened before the break. And then one thing I definitely want to get to before we run out of time is I really want to talk about the gratitude chapter.
Okay.
Because
so,
I feel like our whole world would be changed in a really positive way if everyone just read that one chapter and practiced it.
I know. It's so true. Well, let's break down the conflict thing and then be sure that we have time to end with the gratitude chapter. So I think in that particular scene, it was the thing that made it work was that no matter how confrontive I got or how dysfunctional, the way I was trying to raise that issue, Peter stayed in listening mode. It's one of those paradoxes of persuasion. He didn't push back. He didn't give a counter view. He didn't defend what he did. He didn't explain what he did. He didn't blame anyone else. He listened. He asked more questions than he gave opinion statements.
Yeah.
And he found places to agree.
Well, and I guessed when I didn't get specific information. Basically, what I did was act as if she were trying to be a principled communicator. And the power of acting as if someone's going to be a principled communicator tends to bring out their best side.
And I think it's important.
It was really obvious that that's when she really connected with you.
Yes.
Exactly.
When you said that, then she just felt like she just fell into you.
Yes.
Now, I also want to be certain that your listeners get that I could have changed it from the way I raised the issues. So it really does work from either side. So when I went in on that particular day to raise the issue, In the first round that we did, I was confrontive. I used very negative, judgmental, threatening terms. I wasn't listening. I wasn't open. And in many of our programs, people have asked us about raising issues. I mean, some people think it's harder to raise an issue than it is to respond to criticism. And there are many fears around it. But in the end, our ability to raise delicate issues consciously and effectively affect so much of our life. It's what lets us get what we want and need from other people.
So do we have a moment for Susan to show your listeners how she would have raised that differently, that whole issue?
Yeah, that would be great. Because, I get this a lot with clients who, want to be able to ask their significant other for what they want, or want to bring up a conflict that happened a couple of days ago, but their inclination is really just to let it go.
Yeah.
Like, I can't really talk about that. I don't know how do I bring that up?
Yeah.
And I think that the reason that, when you say that it's more difficult to be the one bringing up the delicate subject is that you're the one who's potentially initiating conflict, which everyone wants to avoid, right?
Exactly right, Michelle.
Exactly. And so before we do the example of what it would look like done in the method we propose, let me just urge your listeners to the reason it's important to do so. The reason it's important to raise delicate issues is because, number one, when we do it well, when we do it consciously and effectively, we have the power to solve the problem that's really, really gnawing at us, and at the same time strengthen the relationship and deepen trust. The other reason to bring it up is because what we permit, we promote. And even though we don't want to be promoting the very behavior that's driving us nuts, we do that every day, right, when we permit it. And finally, and even though we don't have a lot of time to linger here, the research from the Framingham studies it's unequivocal.
This is a recent 10-year follow-up, and it was discovered that women who reported holding their tongues with their husbands were 4 times more likely to die in that 10-year follow-up. So I don't know you real well or your listeners, but I can tell you my wife Susan's going to last a long time based on that data.
She's going to live forever.
Now, here's the catch. There was also a series of studies done at the University of Utah, and those researchers discovered that when people had a combative, confrontive, angry, hostile arguing style, they were 8 times more likely to die of stroke and had equal health risks as obesity, smoking, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. So in many ways, raising issues is like threading the needle. We need to be very direct. We need to be very concise. But it needs to be done in a way that is free from anger and hostility and full of respect. So in the very brief time we have to do this, let's do a quick round of that. And let me suggest that here's what your listeners can look for. I will be translating all of my you accusative language into I feeling language. And I will try to make my feelings statements, not feelings of I'm frustrated, I'm betrayed, I'm annoyed.
Like, I feel like you're a jerk.
Exactly. But really,
you have to remind people that the I statements don't work like that, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
And in fact,
that's not the healthy I statement.
Well, and we've been very influenced by the work of Brene Brown, because that whole idea that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Right. And I'm going to try for your listeners to pull out some vulnerable feelings that show how that's even more of a connector. Okay. Then in the second step, I'm going to pinpoint details instead of hurling negative, generic accusations. Then in the third step, I'm going to take personal accountability for my part in the problem. And we believe this is one of the most powerful moves people can make of all of human communication. And then finally, I'm going to facilitate a solution where we both contribute and where we both have a job to do when it's over. And given the length of time we have, I'm going to try to do all of that in 90 seconds or less.
Because in a longer program, I'd push back and show you how
I'm already having you guys back, so.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So
here we go. Take 2. Susan is now the skilled one. I am the dysfunctional one.
So I'll do raising issues consciously and intentionally, while Peter listens unconsciously and dysfunctionally. Okay, but the same theme. Hi, Pete. I've been struggling with something, and I'm hoping we can talk. Is it an okay time?
Well, how long are we talking about here, Sue?
I don't know, maybe 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Susan, why don't you cut my pinky off? Do you have, could you condense it to maybe 5-6 minutes?
Hey, if it's a bad time, tomorrow's fine.
All right, let's get it over with. What's going on?
All right, Michelle, normally this would be a crappy time to have this conversation, but I know we're not going to be around tomorrow, so I'll talk now. Pete, I'll tell you what's on my mind, and I want you to know I'm losing sleep about it. I'm just so worried about Ronnie. And I'm worried about how he communicates with people in the plant, and I'm really scared that he will drive our best people away.
Well, we know he's never going to win any, personality contest, so we've known that from day one, but has he done something new?
Yeah, let me just pinpoint 2 specific examples that happened recently. He went into the plant when he discovered that 2 guys were 10 minutes late from lunch, and he threw a wrench against the wall and said, "You will not be late in this plant. It's my way or the highway."
He said that?
He said that. And
cried out loud.
Pete, in the same day, he told our bookkeeper, Mildred, that she shouldn't be having coffee while she was on paid time.
He said that to Mildred.
I know.
Sue, for crying, I don't know what to do. Because you remember the last time I tried to talk to Ronnie? He didn't bring the kids to Thanksgiving. The cousins were crying. I tried to talk to this guy, but, it seems to get worse.
And, Pete, I don't want you to think I'm saying this is all about you, because I know I'm part of the problem, too.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, I haven't said anything to Ronnie. I keep telling myself I'd have no impact. Ronnie never listens to anything I say. But the truth is, I've never tried. And I think I'm also part of the problem because I have not even come to you and talked to you about it. When I've come to you, I've been emotional, I've been exasperated, and we've never had a great conversation, and I'm putting that one on me.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
So, Peter, let me tell you something I was thinking I could do different and better. I could go to Ronnie, I could reach out, I could talk to him. I could try to arrange a conversation where all 3 of us talk together, maybe. Is there anything else that you'd like from me?
Well, I think if you can arrange that and you take the lead, Sue, and you facilitate this conversation, maybe it'll have a shot because, the guy does good things in the plant, and then he screws himself up by blowing off the steam. So, if you can lead us through a conversation, maybe we have a chance.
I can commit to that. And what I would ask of you is to be part of that voice so that Ronnie knows that you care deeply about this too.
Well, let's give it a shot. By the way, it'd be a lot more fun if we have more time because I would fight her tooth and nail on this one and make her work and show the listeners how these 2 models really work together. You learn and you get ready with these models, but we say models, not formula, because you always have to be ready for the other person to come back, and so that the 2 are always flowing together, and you're always moving into great listening mode if the person is not moving along with you, because that gets you back on track.
Yeah. Talk a little bit, you mentioned it earlier, talk a little bit about the as if.
Yes. Well, the Azov Principle, it's based on the whole notion of selective perception. And Sue, tell them a little about the selective perception, and then I'll click into the as if.
Well, selective perception means that we can't notice everything in our world. We're hardwired in ways, and that's mostly good news because we can focus on certain things and the rest go in background, so we're able to concentrate. We're able to work in crowded places. We're able to be on a computer with people hustling about us. But it also means that once we form an impression about what someone's like. Once we create a theory of their behavior, we selectively notice what they do to confirm our theory, and we ignore anything they might do to disconfirm.
Confirmatory bias, right?
Yes, exactly.
And the Azov Principle is like the active ingredient of selective perception. In other words, we act as if someone's going to be a certain way, and lo and behold, they play out those behaviors right before our eyes.
Right. So that is the as if.
And you know, and that can happen in a negative. You know, it often happens negatively. We act as if they're going to be a miserable jerk, and no surprise, we've got a real fight on our hands. But we can act as if they're going to be a
reasonable,
yes,
exactly.
And open and curious, and
exactly.
Yes, and it creates a force for the good.
Right. And that's how you can shift a dynamic, even if you're the only one, as you two demonstrated so beautifully, even if you're the only one who is using this healthy communication model, or one of them, right?
Exactly.
You don't need two people playing from the same sheet of music. And as you said earlier, one person, if it takes two to tango, it only takes one to change the dance.
And I think, Michelle, one of the most exciting things in our life right now is that we have spent the last 10 years researching how to make this all possible for people. I mean, for the first majority of for the last 30 years, really, the only people who were able to participate in our work were people whose organizations brought us in to do it. And over the last 10 years, our research has focused on how to make our work available to individuals. So for the last 10 years, we've researched, and we now have available on our website what we call core skills videos. So what you got to see, and your listeners, for every single model that we have presented in the book, we now have a video, real quick video clip, a kernel that people can watch and learn from. And
that's so terrific. And that's so important, because, I mean, I think you guys did a great job with the audio, but it's so great when people can see healthy communication in action and see how it really works. And you may have, I mean, what you did was something that you acted out, but it's how it really does turn out in real life, and it's so important. I want to have, we ran out of time. I want to have the two of you back. I feel like maybe next time we can devote the show to gratitude and focus on your chapter 6 and all of the important information that's in there that can also change people's lives.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it would be a pleasure.
This was just so much fun talking with you.
It was so great. You guys are awesome. You're a great couple. I think you're going to make it.
Yay!
I mean, it's just my professional opinion, but
well, we respect it.
Well, I do look forward to having both of you back. Again, the book is Be Quiet, Be Heard, The Paradox of Persuasion, Building Trust Through Conflict. The website is the Glazers. I apologize for mispronouncing your last name. GLAZER.com.
GLASS.
And there has
oh my God.
So there has to be a T at the beginning. So I'm going to spell it. THEGLASERS. TheGlazers.com.
I hope you will forgive me for mispronouncing and then misspelling, and when I pronounce it correctly, I misspell.
Forgiveness given.
You two are the best. Thank you so much. We'll speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Relationships 2.0. I'll be back again next week. Be well.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.